but the Denver Cutthroats were a short-lived team in the Denver. Played in the old Denver Coliseum across town from the Pepsi Center, home of the Colorado Avalanche. Cutthroats only lasted 2 seasons, made the playoffs both years. And they were eliminated both years by the Allen Americans. And they went dormant for a year, but have not been seen since. Here you see the El Paso Demons. And El Paso does have some hockey history. They had the El Paso Raiders back in the 60s. And of course the El Paso Buzzards winning the WPHL President's Cup in the first 2 years of operations in the WPHL. Interesting side note here, El Paso Demons, owner was losing a lot of money with the Buzzards, and he stole some of the team's equipment and basically left town. And the Buzzards ceased operations shortly thereafter. And now the current team in El Paso are the El Paso Rhinos, very successful Tier 3 junior team. So junior hockey doing very well in El Paso. Here's the Fort Worth Brahmas. Technically that is a buffalo, but of course I want to get as closest to the real thing as possible, and there you see the Fort Worth Brahmas home jerseys as well as their away jerseys, and I went ahead and gave them an alternate jersey as well with the state of Texas. Fort Worth / Texas Brahmas lasted in the league for a little over 10 years before finally ceasing operations in 2012. Had some problems with the downtown Fort Worth Convention Center with the lease, and currently the Brahmas are now a junior team in the North American Hockey League called the Lone Star Brahmas, and they play at the NYTEX Sports Center in North Richland Hills. Of course, here we have the Garland Jackrabbits. I had to borrow the Greenville Swamp Rabbits of the ECHL. They're a part of this league as well. And also the Grand Prairie Racers. And I went ahead and went with the Racers in Grand Prairie. We have a Lone Star Park, a racetrack in Grand Prairie, and as well as a minor league baseball team, the Texas Air Hogs. So I gave Grand Prairie a hockey team and called them the Racers, which will go along with the horse track in Grand Prairie. Here we have the Halifax Havoc. And of course Halifax, Nova Scotia. Also, I was really a hockey mad city in the Great North, up in Canada. And some were talking that an NHL should expand to Halifax. I think that would be a good addition to the league. But there is the Halifax Havoc. And of course the Houston Aeros. Houston Aeros, former WHA team, for being revitalized in the AHL as the affiliate of the Minnesota Wild, and lasting until the 2013 season, where they are now the Iowa Wild. But I think Houston would be a great addition to the National Hockey League as well. We'd love to see the Aeros come back on the ice and take on the Dallas Stars. That'd be a great hockey rivalry. Great big rivalry between those two cities. I think they have a hockey-ready arena in the Toyota Center, and Tillman Fertitta, owner of the Houston Rockets, said he is interested in bringing the NHL to Houston. And I think the Aeros will be a great addition to the NHL. Here we have the Irving Ice Tigers. And I went with the colors of the Dallas Cowboys, navy blue and silver. Of course, Irving former home to the Cowboys for over 30 years. So in honor of the Dallas Cowboys' former home, I gave Irving a hockey team, the Ice Tigers, and went with the colors of the Dallas Cowboys. Here you see the Laredo Bucks. And it's a little bit similar to what the Bucks wore back in the CHL, and a lot of people said that hockey would never work at Laredo. Laredo is a border city with Mexico, but it lasted a good 10 years. Started playing in 2002 and ceased operations in 2012, winning 2 President's Cup championships. And of course, I wanted to get the closest logo I could find, and unfortunately, they didn't have, for NHL 18, they didn't have a Buck logo, a picture of a deer. So I went with the state of Texas, and of course, their navy, gold, and white. And there you see the road unis. And Laredo, of course, they did cease operations, and that team was relocated to St. Charles, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis, and became the St. Charles Chill. Well, they only lasted for 1 season before ceasing operations once again. But there is talk of hockey returning to Laredo in the form of a junior team, a Tier 2 junior team, called the USA CHL, which will only start with 4 teams in operation for the upcoming season. We'll see how that goes, but again, Laredo did very well in hockey for 10 years, and we'll see how the junior league will fit into Laredo this upcoming season. Up next, we have the Long Island Beast. Of course, playing in Long Island, New York, in the Nassau Coliseum after the Coliseum was renovated. Long Island Beast, a part of the Eastern Division. We have my custom league here, and here we see the Louisiana Ice Pirates, and for the logo, for any time you see the LC popping up, that stands for Lake Charles. The Lake Charles Ice Pilots lasted for 5 years in the WPHL before the merger with the CHL, and the Ice Pirates did not survive the merger. But the Lake Charles Ice Pirates existed for 5 years in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and I brought them back as the Louisiana Ice Pirates. Here you see the Louisville Stallions, and I went with Stallions. In Louisville, you think of horse racing, of course, the University of Louisville, the Cardinals, and of course Churchill Downs, home of the Kentucky Derby. So I went with the Stallions as their mascot. Up next, we have the Lubbock Cotton Kings. And there was a hockey team. There were actually 2 hockey teams out in East Texas, Lubbock and Odessa. Only one is still in operation today as a junior team, and that is the Odessa Jackalopes. But the Lubbock Cotton Kings lasted until I believe the 2005 season, and where they had some problems negotiating a lease with the Municipal Coliseum on the campus of Texas Tech University. So they decided to go dormant with hopes of playing again the following season, but have never returned. Another way, here are the Lubbock Cotton Kings. And here we have the Markham Mammoth. Markham, of course, a talk of possible NHL expansion. Markham is a suburb of the Greater Toronto area in Ontario. The league has discussed putting a second team in Toronto. Of course, you have the very successful Toronto Maple Leafs, a very diehard following, very devoted crowd up in Ontario. And I went ahead and went with Markham, and I called them the Mammoth. Here we have the Mississippi Seawolves out of Biloxi, Mississippi. And the Mississippi Seawolves existed in the ECHL, no longer in operation. And they played in the Coliseum. And they were named the Seawolves before going dormant after Hurricane Katrina and becoming the Mississippi Surge, who are also no longer in operation. But I've added the Mississippi Seawolves here in my custom league. And here is the Oklahoma City Blazers. And the Oklahoma City Blazers, a very successful ECHL franchise, or should I say, a CHL franchise. Lasted for a very long time, played in the Cox Convention Center. Started in the Cox Convention Center before moving across the street to what is now I believe the Century Link Center. was the Ford Arena at the time, but that is an NBA arena, home of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then came the AHL Oklahoma City Barons came calling, the AHL affiliate of the Edmonton Oilers, who are now the Bakersfield Condors. But they spent 5 to 6 seasons in Oklahoma City before being relocated, played in the Cox Convention Center, and I've decided to bring back the Oklahoma City Blazers to put in my custom league. And their home and away unis. And I'm going to take it back in time and brought back, gave them an alternate uniform, and there it is. Little throwback days. Back in the 70s for the Blazers. Here we have the Portland Prowlers, also a maybe potential NHL expansion. They have the Moda Center, which is currently being used for junior hockey in the CHL, the WHL, the Portland Winterhawks, and here I have the Portland Prowlers. Went ahead and used the Cougar as a logo. Part of the Pacific Division of my new league. And I brought back the Quebec Nordiques. Quebec City in talks of possible expansion for the NHL. Of course, the Nordiques are currently the Colorado Avalanche. Back in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, when the Nordiques was really struggling, Canadian dollar was in a recession, and they decided to move the team from Quebec City to Denver, Colorado, where they became the Avalanche and won the Stanley Cup in just their second year in Denver. Of course, they have an arena ready, currently hosting the Quebec Remparts. But a big, beautiful arena in Quebec City. Here are the Nordiques, part of my new league. And here we have the Sacramento Barons. I gave the capital of California a hockey team playing the Golden One Center, which are home of the Sacramento Kings. So I went with the Sacramento Barons. And moving on here, the San Antonio Dragons, arch rival of the Austin Ice Bats in the league. The Dragons only were a short-lived team in the IHL, the International Hockey League, and they had to share a building with the Central Hockey League San Antonio Iguanas, which had a much bigger fan following. Of course, neither one of those teams are in existence anymore, as the AHL now has the San Antonio Rampage, owned by the NBA San Antonio Spurs, currently in operation at the AT&T Center. But the Dragons and the Iguanas had to share the Freeman Coliseum, and I decided to go ahead and bring back the Dragons for my new custom league. Up next, we have the Shreveport Mudbugs. Again, I know that technically that is a craft for a logo, but I wanted to get as close as I can to the real thing. The Mudbugs had a great run, and it's a professional minor league franchise in Shreveport and Bossier City, Louisiana. Spent the first 5 seasons of existence at Hirsch Coliseum, and then the Century Link Center was built across the river over in Bossier City, and that team relocated across the river to Bossier City to become the Bossier Shreveport Mudbugs. And I would say that arguably the Mudbugs are the most successful franchise in the history of the CHL/WPHL. 4 President's Cup championships and a great following of Bugs fans, as they did travel well, especially in the playoffs when my team, the Central Texas Stampede, and I got to sit and chat with some of the Mudbugs fans during that series. Great series between the Stampede and the Mudbugs, and really follow their team. They're really compassionate. They love their hockey over in Shreveport. And of course, after their 4th President's Cup championship in 2011, a month later, due to declining attendance and of course the recession, the Bugs shut down operations. But just a couple years ago, they were reinvented in the form of the North American Hockey League, the Tier 2 Junior Hockey League, and the Mudbugs are back playing at Hirsch Coliseum, where I believe are leading the league in attendance. So they are really compassionate about the Mudbugs over in Shreveport. So good hockey history in the town of Shreveport and Bossier City, Louisiana. But there are the Shreveport Mudbugs. And here are the St. John's Ice Caps. Of course, the St. John's Ice Caps were in operation for a few years over in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and played in the Mile 1 Center. They played my team, the Texas Stars, in the 2014 Calder Cup Finals, where the Stars won it in 5 games. Of course, they have a great passion, great compassion out there for hockey. up in Canada. They really wanted a team back in St. John's, as the Ice Caps were affiliated with the Winnipeg Jets, and then the Jets would relocate their team to the MTS Center in Manitoba and would recreate the Manitoba Moose. The Ice Caps would then have a AHL affiliate with the Montreal Canadiens, and then they would again move their team to be closer to Montreal and Laval, Quebec. Currently the Laval Rocket, but the Ice Caps are no longer in existence, as they are now bringing back a new franchise in the ECHL called the Newfoundland Growlers. So congratulations to the people of St. John's, Newfoundland, as they are going to get a hockey team, and good luck to the St. John's Growlers this upcoming season. And here we are with the Texas Killer Bees, and which are actually the Rio Grande Valley Killer Bees, RGV, as you can see. They were in the CHL at the same time as the Laredo Bucks, and that was a big rivalry down south. They were based in Hidalgo, Texas, which is just outside of McAllen, another border town. And they lasted for about 2002, and that is when basically most of the southern CHL teams, the Austin Ice Bats, the Corpus Christi Ice Rays, and the Laredo Bucks all ceased operations. And due to traveling costs, the Killer Bees would cease operations as well, until just recently, where they were reinvented as the North American Hockey League, the Killer Bees. But they only played 2 seasons, and fans really weren't into it, as they were the professional league, and the Killer Bees were then moved away to Pennsylvania. And again, as I mentioned before, with the Laredo Bucks, a new league is being formed, a Tier 2 Junior Hockey League, the USA CHL, and the Killer Bees are once again born into hockey again. So I went with the Texas Killer Bees, but they are actually the Rio Grande Valley Killer Bees. And now we have the Waterloo Wizards, or should I say the Waco Wizards. Interesting side note for the Waco Wizards, they were a short-lived team. They only lasted 3.5 seasons. One of the original 6 members of the Western Professional Hockey League. And the Wizards, a lot of people in the city of Waco took objection to Wizards being the name, because Waco is a really religious community, a Baptist community. Of course, Baylor University is based in Waco, one of the world's largest Baptist university. But again, Waco is a very religious community, and a lot of churches in that city took exception to the Wizards nickname, as of course, Wizards, magic, satanic connotations. So, but the Wizards did struggle, as Waco was never really a hockey town. The fans that did come out to the games, they were really passionate about the Wizards. They followed them. They traveled everywhere they went. But then it just never really caught on. And they were the lowest. They were at the very bottom of the WPHL in attendance for their 3.5 years in existence. And I did go to watch the Stampede play in Waco, one game, and it just felt like a home game for the Stampede. And they tried it, it didn't work out. But anyway, I brought back the Waco Wizards as the Waterloo Wizards, and you'll see Waco at the top left hand of your screen whenever I play against them as the Austin Ice Bats. And there you have it, folks, my custom league, and I'm about to start bring you another broadcast here in just a couple of minutes. And I'm going to play as the Austin Ice Bats in the new league, and I'll show you the standings, and I'll be right back here in just a couple of minutes. So stay with me, folks.